I bet you didn't think that you would learn a lesson in open-mindedness, hard work, and achieving your goals from Dave Portnoy. That's what you're about to see in this clip of the Joe Rogan Experience. We're at episode 1920. I'm Coach Colin, coolest high-performance coach in the world. And if you want the absolute best insights to the podcast you love, smash that subscribe button. Let's get into it.
I'm not a big.
You're a toxic masculinity guy. You have to do toxic masculinity things.
Not a huge cigar guy.
No?
No,
Like
I mean, I do like them, but I don't smoke them a lot. I kind of quit when I started my paper route. We had a cigar company called Honeys, something Honeys. So it used to be a paper route. I delivered it, and it was like our first advertiser. I'd smoke them when I drove the Astro van. I got so high, and I was just done with them.
When was this?
2004.
You had a paper route in 2004?
Barstool started as a newspaper. So I used to like hand it out, and we had those little news racks outside subway stations. For 48 hours, I just jump in my Astro van and fill the news racks, drop them in bars throughout Boston.
Really?
Yeah, that's how it started.
That's how you started?
Yeah, it's a newspaper.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your own newspaper?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd wake up like 4 a.m., go to the subway, hand it out to people, like walking by me, and just scream at them, like, take the newspaper. Yeah.
What was the motivation to do that? Like,
So-
how did you get the idea?
I was always into gambling, and I had a normal sales job. I always knew I wanted to try my own thing. Flew out to Vegas, met with like the casinos. They're all like, you got to be a dealer. You got to start at the bottom. I was like, I don't want to do that. Talked to offshore casinos and said, how do I get involved? And they all said, the internet at the time I did this, if you went to a gambling site, fireworks, pop-ups, look like you're getting your credit card stolen. They actually said, get us off the internet, put us in a physical newsletter, and we'll advertise. So I sold like a year of advertising before we launched, and it was a gambling rag. It was like a 4-page newspaper, but I sold the advertising, and it allowed me just to morph. So like during the course of the year, we slowly moved strictly away from gambling to more like men's interest, like girls and things like that. That's how it started.
Wow. So when you were into gambling, like, why did you decide to do a newspaper?
Because I knew I wanted to do something I enjoyed doing. I was doing cold calling sales. I couldn't do that my whole life. And when I called these casinos to advertise, it's what I just said. The internet was cluttered. It was filled. It was a time when it literally every gambling website had little graphics of fireworks popping up, everything. And the gambling companies wanted to get off the internet because it was too cluttered. So they said, if you do a newsletter or a newspaper, we'll advertise. So that's why I created it.
How funny is that? They wanted to get off the
Off
internet.
the internet. Yeah, there it is.
Barstool Sports. Oh, my God. Look at that. 2003, the first issue of Barstool Sports.
Yeah.
Wow. Hooters football
First
headquarters.
advertisers. Yeah. Hooters.
Hooters was your first?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Hooters is apparently in trouble. I just read something about Hooters is not doing.
Man, it's really it's amazing to think that Barstool, like, look at what it is right now and look at where it started. It started as a newspaper. And the reason that I say that he's going to teach you a lesson in open-mindedness is because the goal for him and the goal for you, whatever your goal is, it looks a certain way, right? But he didn't stay rigid in that. He was just like, I knew I couldn't do the cold calling sales my whole life. So I wanted to try something different. He did the newspaper thing. He morphed from gambling. He knew he liked gambling, but then all of a sudden he moved on to girls' interests, started forming into what we know Barstool as. Then all of a sudden it probably took a big internet play, moved completely away from newspapers. And the reason that I say that this is a lesson in open-mindedness is because he didn't stay rigid. He didn't say, no, it has to stay a newspaper. He didn't say, no, it has to stay just about girls and stuff. He didn't say, no, it can't be a podcast now. He didn't say any of that. He just lets it morph. And even to this day, as we talk about Barstool, it's like, what is it? It's something that's like ever changing. And I say it's a lesson in open-mindedness to you and your goals, because it's like, you could have a goal, right? You can have something in mind that you want to do, but you have to allow it to morph and change. As long as it doesn't morph and change into something you completely don't want to be involved with, let it morph, let it change. Go to the first video of this YouTube channel. It's a vlog, and I'm showing Australian people around Toronto. Like, what? And then slowly it changed into interviews with artists. Then I started doing talking pieces by myself. Then I started interviewing other people about like randomness, like Joe Rogan does. Then I started like it just kept morphing and changing. Then it became like this art show kind of thing that I used to do. Then I started interviewing people, like interviewing like protesters and stuff. Like it's morphed and changed into so many different things. So like Jeff Bezos has something that he says. He says in regards to Amazon, he's like we are rigid in our vision, but we are flexible on how we get there. So it's like if you just have a vision of, I always use the factory, I always use where I come from. But like if you have a vision of like, I don't want to be working in a factory, I want to be a business owner, it's like, stay rigid in that. I'm going to leave this factory and I'm going to own a business. But if you have in mind like a landscaping company, but people keep calling you, like you do a roofing gig or two, or you do this thing, you do some handyman stuff, and people keep calling you for other things, don't turn that away and be like, no, I'm going to do landscaping. Don't turn that stuff away. Just keep going with whatever's working, whatever's taking you further and further away from the warehouse. Right? It's like if you're trying to lose weight. I always go back to where I come from. Losing weight, working in factories. I was a fat guy working in factories, so I always bring that up. But if you're like trying to lose weight and you're doing deadlifts and you're lifting hard, but then all of a sudden you do some cardio and you see that you lose 5 pounds and you like cardio and you like running and stuff, like don't be like, well, I can't. I want to be jacked and I got whatever's getting you to the goal. Just stay flexible. You know where you want to be. Just be as flexible as possible, because when it comes to success and when it comes to getting somewhere, like, you ever seen the meme where it shows like what people think success is and then what it actually is, and it's like, oh, squiggly line, and it's like, because you gotta stay flexible. You gotta stay malleable when it comes to that type of stuff. And I think that's just a perfect example. The thing was a newspaper. And now look at it. It's like a podcast network. It's like a sports podcast type of network. If you're even old enough to know, it's kind of like, it's like they took the Man Show. If you don't know what the Man Show is, Google it. Back in the day, get Jimmy Kimmel. He used to be a beast. But Google, it's like a network of the Man Show. It's like the Man Show on steroids. It's like multiple shows that are just like the Man Show. It's nuts. And he didn't intend for that to happen. Look at Joe Rogan, another great example. You go to episode 1, it's him and a guy sitting in front of a computer. He was basically Penguin Zero before Penguin Zero existed. He was a YouTube streamer. He was a streamer before streaming was even cool, before Twitch was even in existence. That's what Joe Rogan was doing. But he didn't stay rigid. Imagine he'd stayed rigid and said, no, it has to be me sitting in front of the computer with Brian Redband, and that's how it has to be. Can you imagine? But instead, he was flexible. He was like, okay, I'll do it in my I'll do it in my house, in the back room. And then all of a sudden, it was like, okay, fine, I'll use a studio. And then it was like, okay, fine, I'll interview a scientist. Okay, and then the next thing you know, this guy's interviewing presidential candidates, and then all of a sudden he's interviewing Dave Portnoy. He just doesn't stay rigid. You got to be malleable when it comes to your goals. Always know what it is that you want as an outcome, but never be like, this is how I have to get there. Don't worry about the how. The how just happens. You notice that he morphed basically because he was trying to get an advertiser. So in the pursuit of revenue, he morphed into something that was more into something that was more internet. It wasn't even like he was trying to get to the net. It just, in the pursuit of trying to become this guy that wasn't doing cold calling anymore, all of a sudden now he's on the internet. Then it turned into something else. Then it turned into something else. Then he probably started hiring people to do shows. Now all of a sudden he just sits back. He has Caller Daddy on his roster. Why? Because he's not rigid in how he gets to where he wants to be. I think that's a huge, huge lesson. The guy went from doing cold call sales And it's such a good lesson for any guy out there. If you want to be something, you can be anything. Look at where this guy used to be. I mean, Joe Rogan, he was a comedian. He was on TV shows, this, that. But look where Dave used to be. He was doing cold call sales. Decided to sell a newspaper 4 a.m. yelling at people to take some newspaper. And he grew it into what Barstool Sports is today. I just think that's absolutely amazing, absolutely commendable. And I thought you guys should hear about the origins of Barstool. I'm out. Peace.